Join me in welcoming our first keynote speaker. She is a senior researcher at the Research Institute for Innovations in Education at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel. She is considered the foremost scholar on Indian Jews today. She is the founding chairperson of the Israeli-India Cultural Association, a board member of the Israel-India Friendship Association. Let us welcome Honorable Dr. Shalva Weil.
For 2 years, the organizing committee of this conference have worked together to produce this amazing effect. I'm envious of the relations that you have between yourselves and the fact that you actually succeeded. The drive behind the organization was undoubtedly Mr. Ivar Fjeld, a man from Norway who resides in Goa. I'm overwhelmed by the hospitality I've received by all the people of Goa, by our chairperson, Mr. Alan de Souza, by Mr. Anthony Ryan and Ms. Diva Ryan, who've accompanied me, by the Christian Friends of Israel, who have hosted me, and by all the people who are sitting here and are paying me this tribute to listen to me. The title I've chosen for today's paper is Salvaging the Jews of Goa. I'm proud, as a researcher at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, to be able to present this paper here, and I applaud the fact that the Deputy Consul from Bombay, Mr. Matan Zamir, has joined us and has contributed to all our meetings. Thank you very much. Lured by the local products in Goa, Jewish traders could well have reached Goa's shores in early times. Linguistic evidence confirms the possibility of ancient Jewish communities and early commercial connections between India and the Holy Land. The articles brought on King Solomon's ships from the kingdom of Seba or Sheba in approximately 10,000 BCE, mentioned in the 1000 BCE, mentioned in the biblical book of Kings, chapter 10, verses 1 to 13, and repeated in Chronicles 2, chapter 9, verses 1 to 9. These articles are of, according to the linguist Chaim Rabin, who used to be a linguist at the Hebrew University, he's passed on. These items are of Indian origin. They include kofim, apes, tukim, peacocks, almag, sandalwood, or valgum, and various other articles which are present on the west coast of India. Of course, an alternative theory says that King Solomon brought these from the kingdom of Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, which could be Kush or Ethiopia. But there's a lot of confusion in the scientific sources between the west coast of India and the southernmost coast of India and Ethiopia. In Kings 10, verses 11 to 15, it is mentioned that King Solomon made an alliance with Hiram, king of Tyre, and that the Phoenicians, or Tyrians, handled commercial relations with the land of Ophir. This is commonly associated with India. Traders could have reached India by two routes: through the deserts of Arabia by caravan, or through the Red Sea by ship. The seafaring members of the tribes of Asher and Zebulun could have lived in Ophir, India, in order to continue the trade brought to that place by King Solomon. Is it possible that Ophir or Sippara was Goa of today. Travelers' Tales in the Talmud, which is the Jewish book interpretation and discussion on the Bible and on Jewish law, mention trade specifically with India, including commodities such as Indian ginger and iron. Last night I enjoyed a wonderful ginger tea here. In the book of Esther, which is a pseudographic book, King Ahasuerus' kingdom stretched from Hodu, which is India, to Kush, which is generally accepted to be Nubia or Ethiopia. From the 9th century CE, Common Era, Jewish merchantmen known as Radhanites traded between East and West, from the Middle East to South Asia and back. And indeed, ancient Jewish texts dating from the 11th to the 13th centuries, discovered in Cairo, include documents describing the trade carried out between Arab-speaking Jews and Hindu partners in spices, pharmaceuticals, textiles, metals, gold, silver, and silks. Some of you may have read Amitav Ghosh's book, novel, In an Ancient Land. In that book, which is based on actual documents found in the Geniza, the Cairo Geniza, which is a repository for texts found in the Cairo synagogue, he bases the whole novel around letters from an Arab-speaking Jew to traders in India. And the letters are about commodities that they brought back to what we would call today Palestine or Israel, that area. It's possible that there was ancient Jewish settlement in Goa. We do not have documentary proof of it. Some researchers have maintained that the existence of Coptic crosses on the walls of Our Lady of Rosary Church in Old Goa point to an early type of Judeo-Christianity in Goa. I'll remind the audience that in the early days, Judaism and Christianity were one and basically split off at a certain point. The existence of ritual baths with similar size to Jewish stipulations is a possibility and appears to be quite persuasive and points to a possible, almost definite Jewish colony in Goa around the 1st century CE in the Common Era, or possibly earlier. A ritual bath is called a mikveh in Hebrew, and you will find a mikveh in all current synagogues in India and all over the world, even in the community of in New Delhi, of which Rabbi Ezekiel Maleka is the head. And the stipulations of this mikveh are that the water has to be sufficient to cover the entire body of an average-sized person. That is, it should be 3 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1 cubit deep. The necessary volume of water in a mikveh is estimated to be what's called 40 seah of water. And there's a debate in the Talmud, in the text, what is a seah and what's the cubic volume of a seah, but it's usually estimated to be 575 litres of water. The structure that we saw on Friday, that I was taken to by my hosts, looks very much like a mikveh. It might be too wide, but it looks very much like a mikveh. But one wonders whether in the Augustan complex, if they couldn't dig down a bit more, we could see a little bit more of the ancient Jewish settlement. The Jews of India are divided today into 3 distinct communities. The Cochin Jews of Kerala, of whom most people have heard, who lived in Cochin, and they had 7 other communities in Ernakulam, in Mala, in Cheramangalam, and Parur. There are several theories as to who the Cochin Jews are, and how they got to the Kerala coast. One of the theories, again, is that they came as the henchmen in King Solomon's ships. But another, more common theory is that when St. Thomas arrived on the coast of on the Malabar coast, he came to the wedding of the king of Cranganor's daughter. And there, a Jewish flautist was singing the Hebrew songs that St. Thomas knew from the Holy Land. That means that the local Christians have a very common legend that there was already an established Jewish community on the Malabar coast before the 1st century of the Common Era. The Cochin Jews, at their height, only numbered 2,400 people in 1947 when Indian independence was declared. And in 1954, they transferred en masse to the State of Israel because of Zionistic belief. Only few scores remained on the Malabar coast. And these are the ones who have maintained the famous Paradesi synagogue at which Indira Gandhi appeared in 1968 and which the Indian government produced a stamp commemorating 400 years since the establishment of the Paradesi synagogue in the Portuguese period in 1568. I'm mentioning this because of the relevance soon in my lecture to the Jews of Goa. So that's one well-known Jewish community. But documentary evidence, and we have to distinguish here between legend and documentary evidence. Documentary evidence of the Jews of Cochin is found in copper plates. These copper plates are very similar to the copper plates found in Goa of the Bojaz rulers who ruled from the port of Chandrapur in the north to Chandor in the south of Goa. Now these copper plates in Goa are dated from the 4th to the 7th century CE. But the copper plates on the Malabar coast are dated by experts, and that's certainly not my field, to the year 1000. In the year 1000, the local Raja, Ravi Bhaskaravan Varma, gave the local Jewish leader, Joseph Rabban, 72 privileges. The privilege to carry a parasol, the privilege to walk on a red carpet, the privilege to ride on an elephant, and the privilege to take taxes from the peoples around. So the definite proof of Jews on the Malabar coast extends back to 1000. And I would point out that this is the period when we're finding, in the 11th century, when we're finding documents deposited in the Cairo Geniza, the repository of texts, in which people are documenting trade with India. Recent excavations in Pattanam, as part of the Museries Heritage Project in Kerala, are unearthing artifacts dating back to the Roman period much further back. It's interesting that in this year, as a recent discovery, the head of the Pattanam excavations, a colleague of mine, Dr. P.J. Cherian, has unearthed ceramics with the name on them, Ella. Now, Ella, he thought, was the port of Eilat in South Israel. And we even saw a snippet of Eilat on the lovely video of Israel. And Eilat and Aqaba were one port then, and there's no question that that was the port, a Roman port, and they were the Romans were sending commodities one way to India, and the Indians were sending them back to Israel. Of course, a second possibility emerges once I'm here in Goa, that Ella is, of course, the Goan port, and that they were sending these spices and things much nearer from the Malabar coast to Goa. I leave that for you to decide, but also they're unearthing these excavations at the moment, and I think things will become much clearer within the year or two, now that the British Museum and Oxford University have entered in and supporting the Museum's Heritage Project. So the one well-known Jewish community are the Cochin Jews. Today, the Cochin Jews in India are disappearing. There are only 7 left in Jewtown, in Cochin, and a few scattered people in the rest of Kerala, like Ernakulam and Mala. The largest Jewish community are the Ben Israel. Ben Israel, that's how they say it. It's Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. They trace their descent from the kingdom of Israel, not from the kingdom of Judah. As you will recall, the Assyrian kings in the Bible, Shalmaneser and Tiglath-Pileser, in 722 BCE, exiled the 10 tribes to what's written in the Book of Kings, to Halach and Habor, the cities of Medes and the river of Gozan. Many people say the river of Gozan is the Ganges, that's India. And the city of Medes is well known to be, almost definitely known to be Persia, Iran. Halach and Habor have been identified by archaeologists as the area in Iraq near Nimrod, and anybody who's been in the British Museum in London will be able to see an amazing fresco of the Israelites being exiled to Halach and Habor, which is Nimrod, and these excavations were affected at the end of the 19th century by British archaeologists, and they're now in the British Museum. We'll just wait a bit and then the Iraqis will ask for the British to put them back into Iraq. That's nowadays countries are asking to return artifacts that the colonialists took, and I'm sure the same will be of India soon. Anyway, so the Israelites from the kingdom of Israel were exiled to these areas. But it's written in the Bible that a certain number of Israelites remained in the kingdom of Israel. The Ben Israel of India, the children of Israel of India, maintained that they remained in the kingdom of India until the year 175 BCE, when the enemy, Antiochus Epiphanes, who is the villain of the story of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is like our Diwali. It's the festival of lights. And Antiochus Epiphanes tried to, in modern terms, effect a pogrom against the Israelites in the kingdom of Israel. And so the Israelites, probably seafaring tribes of the tribe of Zebulun, were frightened. They jumped on a boat, and the boat was shipwrecked off the Konkan coast. And this is their narrative in 175 BCE. And then when they found they were near a shore, the ship had capsized. They claimed that they arrived in Naugao, which is about 400 kilometers north of here, and they went up on the coast, and the local Hindus accepted them and said, "Who are you?" And they said, "We are Ben Israel, we are the children of Israel." And the Hindus, being very hospitable, said, "Come and live with us." They said, "No, we have to say our prayer, which is a belief in monotheism, in one God. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad." Hear, O Israel, we have basically a statement in monotheism. And they'd arrived in a polytheistic country. They buried their dead, the ancestors of the Ben Israel of today buried their dead in a cemetery which one can see in the Konkan. And they took up the traditional occupation of oil pressing. They were called Shanwateli, but they didn't work on the Sabbath. The Ben Israel came in contact with the British during the British period. We have no knowledge of what they did during the Portuguese period here in Goa. They were pretty near Goa, and in fact, some of their area was conquered by the Portuguese. And the first documentary evidence we have is of graveyards found in the Konkan coast, which only extend back to the 18th century. The Ben Israel enlisted in the British Army, and they tended to work on telegraphs and posts, and gradually moved out of the Konkan and moved into Bombay. The first synagogue, which was established in Bombay, was established in 1796 by an officer in the British Army called Samuel Ezekiel de Baker. Samuel Ezekiel de Baker was a good-looking chap, and he was an officer, and he was taken captive in Tipu Sultan's army and thrown into jail. And Tipu Sultan's mother quite liked the look of him and called him up and said, you know, we're feeling very problematic about what your fate is, because in the Quran there is some verse that if you're of Jewish origin, I think some sort of statement that we have to get rid of you. So he said, who are you? And he said, I'm Bene Israel. He didn't say, I'm Bene Yehuda. I'm not a Jew. I'm from the kingdom of Israel. She said, wonderful, you can go free. And so he went free. He was, relatively speaking, near Cochin. He knew about the ancient settlement of Jews in Cochin, went to Cochin, took a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll, which is the Jewish Bible, and he brought a Torah scroll from that famous synagogue that I've mentioned up to Bombay and established the first Ben Israel community in Bombay in 1796. That meant that there were at least 10 men, a quorum, living in Bombay at that time at the end of the 18th century. During the 19th century, many people moved out of the Konkan to Bombay and then spread over the Indian subcontinent and established synagogues in Pune, Ahmedabad, as far afield as Aden and Karachi. In 1947, there were 28,000 Ben Israel in India, and today in India, there are approximately 4,000 Ben Israel in the whole of India. And